My hands went numb around my water glass as the words left my mother's mouth. "You're not half the woman your sister is." The ambient chatter of the restaurant seemed to recede into a tunnel, leaving just her voice echoing in the hollow space behind my ribs. I watched my father's fork pause midway to his mouth, his eyes darting between my mother and me like he was witnessing a car accident in slow motion. Across the table, my sister Rachel shifted uncomfortably, suddenly fascinated by the wine list she'd already memorized. The taste of copper filled my mouth. 3 years of mortgage payments flashed through my mind like a slideshow of sacrifice. Every late-night transfer, every skipped vacation, every time I'd chosen their financial security over my own apartment down payment. I set my glass down with surgical precision, the clink against the white tablecloth unnaturally loud. "Then she can start paying your rent." My name is Claire, I'm 34, and I'm an operations analyst who learned the hard way that keeping families afloat doesn't guarantee staying in their good graces. This is the story of how I discovered my worth when they tried to write me out of it. For most of my adult life, I'd been the family's quiet solution. Not the favorite daughter, not the problem child, just the one who showed up when things needed handling. While Rachel built her law career in Manhattan, collecting accolades and admiration, I'd been the one fielding my parents' worried calls about property taxes and unexpected repairs. "Just this month, honey," my mother would say when the bank statements arrived. "We'll sort it out ourselves next time." Next time became a pattern. 1 month became 3 years. I never minded, not really. I earned decent money at the logistics company, lived simply in my studio apartment, and found satisfaction in knowing my parents could sleep soundly in the house they'd worked 40 years to keep. It felt like love, expressed in spreadsheets and automatic transfers. What I minded was the invisibility of it all. Every family gathering, every holiday dinner, every casual mention of their home became an opportunity to celebrate Rachel's achievements. "Your sister's doing so well," they'd beam to relatives. "She bought us this beautiful anniversary gift." Meanwhile, I'd sit quietly, knowing that the mortgage payment I'd made the week before was the reason they still had anniversaries to celebrate in that house. Tonight was supposed to be different. Rachel had flown in from New York for my father's retirement celebration, and I'd actually allowed myself to hope that maybe, finally, someone would acknowledge what I'd been quietly carrying. Instead, I got the reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. The silence at our table stretched taut as my parents processed what I'd said. My mother's face cycled through confusion, denial, and something that might have been fear. "What rent?" my father whispered, though I could see in his eyes that he already knew. "The mortgage," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. 3 years, every month. Every late notice you didn't want to worry about, every property tax bill that showed up at the worst possible moment. Rachel finally looked up from her wine list. "Mom, what is she talking about?" My mother's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. The woman who could command any social situation suddenly couldn't find her script for this one. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone, scrolling to the banking app with 3 years of transfer history. Would you like me to show everyone exactly what Rachel didn't do to keep the family home standing? "Now wait just a minute," my father started, his voice carrying that familiar edge that meant I was about to be told I was overreacting. "No," I said, and the word came out sharper than I'd intended. "I waited 3 years. I waited through every dinner where you praised Rachel for helping with paperwork while I paid your bills. I waited through every conversation about her success while mine went unmentioned. I'm done waiting." Something shifted in my chest, a loosening of a knot I hadn't realized was there. I stood, leaving $20 on the table for my untouched meal. "The automatic transfer stops tomorrow. Whatever problems that creates, you can ask your better daughter to solve them." The cool evening air hit my face as I pushed through the restaurant doors, but I didn't feel cold. For the first time in years, I felt awake. Later that evening, back at my studio apartment, I opened my laptop and navigated to the online banking portal. The monthly automatic transfer sat there like a digital chain I'd forged myself, link by link, payment by payment. I clicked Cancel Recurring Payment. A small dialog box appeared. Are you sure you want to cancel this recurring transfer? I thought about the dinner, about Rachel's uncomfortable silence, about my mother's casual cruelty delivered over dessert. I thought about every sacrifice I'd made in the shadows while someone else got the applause. I clicked Confirm. The silence from my parents over the next week was deafening. No calls, no texts, no acknowledgement that anything had changed. It was as if they were waiting for me to come to my senses and restore the natural order. Instead, I used the extra money to finally sign the lease on the one-bedroom apartment I'd been dreaming about for 2 years. Hardwood floors, a real kitchen, windows that let in actual sunlight. I bought furniture that was mine, chose paint colors that made me happy, created a space where my worth wasn't measured against someone else's achievements. 2 weeks after the dinner, Rachel called. She'd clearly been talking to our parents about their sudden financial crisis. Claire, we need to talk. Do we? Mom's having panic attacks. Dad won't admit it, but they're scared. The mortgage payment was due yesterday. I felt a familiar tug. The old instinct to fix, to smooth over, to make everything comfortable again. But something had changed in me that night at the restaurant. The part of me that automatically said yes to their problems had gone quiet. That sounds difficult, I said. Claire, come on, they made a mistake, but they're family. They need help. They have a daughter who's half the woman I am. Maybe she can figure it out. The silence on the other end told me Rachel finally understood the math. A month later, my mother showed up at my new apartment. She looked smaller somehow, standing in my doorway with her carefully maintained composure cracked around the edges. Your father and I have been talking, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. We realize we haven't been fair to you. I invited her in, made coffee, waited. We want to put your name on the house deed, she continued. You've earned that right. I considered this. The house I'd helped save, finally acknowledged as partially mine. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like too little, delivered too late, for all the wrong reasons. I don't want it, I said gently. My mother's face crumpled. Then what do you want? I looked around my sunny apartment at the life I'd built with the money that was finally mine again, at the person I'd discovered I could be when I stopped shrinking myself to fit their story. I want you to understand that love isn't supposed to be invisible, I said. I want you to know that support isn't less valuable just because it's quiet. And I want you to remember that the next time you decide to compare your daughters. We sat in silence for a long time. When my mother finally spoke, her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I'm sorry. We took you for granted because we knew you'd always be there. I was there, I said, but not because I had to be, because I chose to be. There's a difference. My mother nodded, though I wasn't sure she fully understood yet. 6 months later, they invited me to Rachel's engagement party. By then, Dad's retirement income had stabilized their finances completely, proving they'd only needed help through those difficult transition years. This time, when relatives asked about the family home and how they'd managed to keep it through tough times, my father spoke up. Claire made that possible, he said clearly. For 3 years, she carried us when we couldn't carry ourselves. We're proud of both our daughters, but Claire's the one who saved our home. It wasn't a complete transformation. Patterns built over decades don't disappear with one conversation. But it was recognition, finally spoken out loud in front of people who mattered. Later that evening, Rachel found me on the back porch, away from the party noise. I never knew, she said, about the mortgage, about any of it. They didn't want you to know, I replied. They wanted to protect your image of yourself as the perfect daughter. That's not fair to you. No, it wasn't. We stood together in the quiet, 2 adults finally seeing each other clearly. I could help now, Rachel offered. With the house, with Mom and Dad, I make good money. I smiled. They don't need help anymore. Dad's retirement is covering everything. They just needed to get through those rough years. But you... I'm fine, I said, and for the first time, I truly meant it. I have my own life now, my own place, my own priorities. I help when I want to, not because I'm expected to be invisible. Rachel nodded slowly. I think I understand why you did it. The restaurant, cutting off the payments. You weren't being cruel. I was being seen, I corrected. For the first time in my adult life, I refused to disappear. The party continued inside, but we stayed on the porch, finally talking as equals rather than competing for scraps of attention. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before, but it was honest in a way that felt sustainable. That night, driving home to my apartment, I thought about how different my life looked now, not because I'd destroyed anything, but because I'd finally refused to let myself be erased from my own story. Now, 2 years later, our family has found its new equilibrium. My parents and I maintain regular contact, but our relationship is based on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. We have dinner once a month, and when they share updates about their lives, they ask about mine too. Rachel and I text regularly and have become genuine friends, bonded by understanding rather than competition. The truth is, family love shouldn't require invisibility. Your contributions shouldn't be minimized just because they're given quietly. And choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. If you've ever been the family's quiet solution, the one who handles things while others get credit, know that your worth isn't measured by how much you can give without being acknowledged. You deserve to be seen, valued, and celebrated for exactly who you are. Your story matters even when you're not the loudest person in the room, especially then. Hit that subscribe button if this resonated with you, and let me know in the comments, have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to disappear. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.